All right, class, Christian ethics. Get your pencils out. We're going to go. We're going to go fast today. Sorry? Yes. Yeah, you're supposed to read chapter 1, 2, and 3 as of yesterday to get through it. So get busy. And look, hey guys, let's get going. I can see who has not uploaded their review, the book review, chapters 1 through 3. And I think there's 4 people, now 5, because you're going to take the class. 6. When you're not going to lose a grade because of that. I'm not going to give you an A+ for being late, but what I will do is you'll get an email from me randomly. I'm just going to say, whatever notes you've taken from this class or next week's class, copy them, scan them to me so I can look them over, all right? There's the difference between a C and a B or a B and an A. Fair enough?
When I turned mine in 10 minutes late, I just was saying this big red thing came up. So,
you got a phenomenal grade. F+, yay.
Why? It kept taking me 10 minutes. I just couldn't figure out how to load it.
Christian ethics. I know, that takes a while. Options and issues. You know, ethics is a branch of philosophy. Ethics is a branch of philosophy. I wish we had a real old school college blackboard with chalk, but we don't. But think of philosophy as a tree. It has many different branches. One is ethics. And from that branch, you have another branch that's called bioethics. And then from that branch, you have metaethics, which means above, right? Or beyond. For example, metaphysics is beyond the physical, right? Back in the day, before Western academia decided to say, look, we're going to separate biology from theology and metaphysics and compartmentalize all of education. That's why kids today, especially me, when I was a kid, I'd be like, I don't need to learn history. I hate history. I don't want to learn math. I just need to learn how to count the money in my wallet. So if I hand somebody a 20 at 7-Eleven, I don't get 1 cent back after buying a Coke. That's all I need, and enough money to ride the bus. I don't need to understand how advanced math works. I only liked English and I liked art, and enough math just to figure out how I can get to America. Seriously. But my principal of my high school, when she found out that I was living here and I was studying over here, you know what she said? You know, most of the teachers that you had, they didn't like you, but they saw potential, you know? My principal would have me come in and sit in the room, right? I know it's interesting because this is ethics. I was a full-fledged Swedish pagan. I lit up a cigarette in the principal's office. He gave me an ashtray. Talk about preferential treatment. All my friends are outside the window looking in, going, what is he doing? You got the school psychologist there. You got my mom. Well, if he can smoke, I can too. I'm 13 and a half, 14, you know. But he says, look, can you just shape up? Because, you know, you have B's and A's and these subjects, and the rest of it is just F's. I go, I don't care. I'm going to Hollywood, you know. So, okay. But then I came over here. The Lord had different plans. Here, I got saved. I saw what goes on in L.A. Yeah, I was drinking with Slash on Guns N' Roses, those knuckleheads. And it scared me because these guys, a lot of these guys, not all of them, are complete nutcases, you know. Why they go on one world tour and sometimes don't make it the second one? It's because when they come back from the first world tour, they continue to party just like they did, you know, for the last year on the road. How are you going to find time for the studio? And you lost so many brain cells, you got an addiction now. Well, that's why normally second, third album really, really stinks, you know. So I was like, that's not for me. This is scary, you know. Got saved. As soon as I got saved, I see pastors up there. Open your Bibles to Matthew 1. And he reads verse 1 and speaks for an hour. I go, did he just make all that up? How do you know that? How do you know all that stuff? So I studied right away. I went to school ministry, I went to Bible college, and I went to Simon Greenleaf, and I went to Veritas, I went to Cypress College. I went, just was a sponge. I couldn't get enough. Okay, and I still haven't stopped. I'm doing a double master's this coming spring, and because I haven't decided on doing a doctorate. That's for me. That's just for me. Well, it's for you too. Whoever wants to come, and learn. Cool. We all sorts of stuff we can throw around. But the problem with education and ethics here being a branch of philosophy, where am I going with this? Part of my frustration was nobody sat me down at the Swedish school and says, sociology is tied together because the imago Dei, the image of God, is printed upon humanity. So it's kind of interesting. And within sociology and psychology, you're going to see a lot of sin and how this works and how that works. And psychology, yes, for ill or for good, but they really need to work with the pastors so there's no misdiagnosis, especially when it comes to demonic warfare, demon possession, right? Get this guy off of meds for 2 weeks. He starts carving upside-down crosses all over the walls. We'll also give him more morphine or whatever pills, Quaaludes, you name it. Maybe we misdiagnosed this guy. Maybe he needs to see a priest or a pastor and cast a demon or demons out. Nobody put things into perspective. Math, Nick, you can prove that God exists based on math. I can. That would be cool to know. So, by the way, this was the British that separated theology, philosophy, biology. It was all metaphysics back in the days of the Greeks. So you got it all as one. It's like a worldview type of a thing. And if you don't have a worldview, what's a worldview? It's one's nature, one's outlook on the nature of things. Remember the glasses that I talked about in the other church history class? American lenses, right? Worldview is, you either wear Christian, atheistic glasses, or you wear Buddhistic glasses, whatever. You're going to judge and interpret the world around you in that way. And let me tell you this, philosophy always has the lowest enrollment at Christian schools. It is one of the most interesting subjects, and they're hard. It's hard reading, but man, you get through it, you will see stuff. I mean, not like, wow, look at that, what's that on the wall? You will think and see things that normally you wouldn't. I was going to say normal people don't. Either paranormal, supernormal, or abnormal, right? But you will appreciate things. For example, we're going to get into philosophy next class. And we've done this before here in this classroom for 2 years, just to spark the interest of some of you in here. When I'm talking about meta-ethics, metaphysics, beyond the physical realm. Metaphysics is really theology, right? If I had a pencil and I drew on a sheet of paper, the number 8, and I asked you, what is that? You will say, that's the number 8. And if I say, no, it isn't, Lindsay will say, well, I think that's infinity standing up. Real fancy. I'm going to go, no. And then when I say something weird like, no, that's the symbol. It's a symbol, Kayla, of 8ness. Wow, Nick's trying to sound really fancy right now. No, it's a symbol of 8ness. Because that 8 does not look like an 8 in Hebrew. It doesn't look like our 8 in China, nor in Arabic. But the idea of 8ness is universal. Everybody knows what a stinking 8 is. But we have different symbols for that mental construction. Now, if I were to ask you, was 4 plus 4 8 before Adam and Eve? It's a universal truth. That means math was not man-made or dependent on the mathematicians or human beings. That means mathematical truths flow from the nature of God. And they are everlasting like all of his other attributes. Now, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I think that's cool stuff. That's the stuff I share with my kids. To try to show them how to put the pieces together. Nobody did that for me. So, when I just bashed on the Britons for separating biology and theology, the guys sitting up there in their ivory towers talking about philosophy and Aristotle and all this other stuff. No, it's very important. It's so important that once you separate yourself from philosophy, you can do a PhD at USC. Dallas Wilder's no longer with us, but J.P. Dargavid did theirs there, their Talbot. PhD in philosophy of science. philosophy of science. And in real short, let me just tell you this. I've used this analogy before. Maybe you've heard secularists, the scientists specifically, saying, you know what, we don't do philosophy. I don't want to debate William Lane Craig. He's a philosopher. He's a well-known apologist, but he's not a scientist. He's gonna cream you on science, and he's gonna cream you on philosophy. So it doesn't matter. Just welcome debate, But chances are most of them won't. But having said that, it's when the scientist says you can only know truth according to the scientific criterion. What do you think the scientific criterion is? The criteria how to arrive at truth. Lindsay, here's how you can get to know truth. All right. You better have some factual support, more than one line of evidence, be able to refute contrary evidence, right? And so on. We'll go down the list. So here you have a couple of bullet points of how to arrive at truth. The scientists will say, we don't need philosophy. Here's what we need. And they'll say before they give you the tools, only the scientific criterion, or scientism, I didn't say Scientology, scientism. You add an ism to it. Is that a prefix? Is it a suffix? It's a suffix. When you add an ISM to something, ism, it becomes a worldview. I am human, but I'm not a humanist. Right? I exist, but I'm not an existentialist. Well, I don't believe in existentialism. Why define my own existence as if there was meaning, even though everything is meaningless? And I mean that. Wow, really? But if you say you can only know truth according to the scientific criterion, and I stop right there, is that a scientific statement? It's a philosophical statement. So the scientist, as he sits down and pens down logical ideas, the loss of logic, because he doesn't believe contradictions are true, A cannot equal non-A, we'll get to that in the next hour, don't need philosophy, and here's, my mathematical E, MC squared, and all of this other stuff. He's doing philosophy before he does science. And yet you're saying we don't need anything from the philosophers. They just think about stuff that doesn't matter. Everybody's a philosopher, and either you're a good one or you're a bad one. And behind every theology is a philosophy, and it's either a good one or a bad one. And if you have a bad theology, you have a bad philosophy. Because philosophy are the philosophical underpinnings by which you understand theology. If not, it's just surface knowledge. It's just surface. You just speak, surface. Few facts here, but you can't really defend them, and you don't understand your own facts. And it's healthy to understand what are the philosophical weaknesses here. Can I defend these? Sort of like walls holding up a roof. The roof is Christianity. You have philosophical presuppositions that needs to be dealt with. And we call that prolegomena. And you do prolegomena before you do theology. I know it's a lot of stuff, but hopefully I just threw this out there to show you that you need to have a worldview, putting the pieces together. You're not here studying ethics just to get a grade. They made this mandatory for every single CCU student. I'm blessed to teach it here and online. But I just want people to understand that this is critical. Because the Ten Commandments, which are ethical standards of rightness, they flow from the nature of God. He did not make them up like, well, I created Adam and Eve, and they're going to sin, and I'm going to come up with a restoration plan, send Jesus, and all this other stuff, and then we have the end of the world. We're going to all live happily ever after and send some people to hell. That's a short version right there, right? But you know what? What I'm going to do is when Moses comes around, I'm going to give him the Ten Commandments. What should I tell him? Don't covet, don't steal, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Like, if God invented the Ten Commandments, do you understand that now God's nature, when it comes to morality, would be relative? He could have reversed the Ten Commandments as always covet, always, look after your neighbor's wife, right? Have other gods before me, that's a good thing. No, the Ten Commandments could never be otherwise. They flow from His nature. And His nature is what? Unchanging. Fancy word for that is immutability. He's immutable. So as such, his entire nature is unchanging. He's omnipresent. When you feel that God is not in your room, guess who moved? You did. But he's on the other side. He's all around you. He is not the room, like pantheism, but he's in the room. He can occupy space, but he's not part of space. He made matter, time, and energy, so he can't be subject to them. So you kind of get the gist from where I'm coming from when it comes to ethics, all right? So yes, it's a branch of philosophy and concerns that which is morally right or wrong. Call it rightness or wrongness. Christian ethics is, in short, what we call moral objectivism or moral absolutism. That we believe that there are absolute standards of right and wrong. So we call it moral absolutism, or we can call it moral objectivism. Objectivism sounds a little better because you don't sound so absolutist. You're always such an absolutist. He's the only way, and absolutism over here. Yeah, truth kind of works that way. But, on the other hand, I want you to write this down. I want you to write this down. I want you to learn how to think like this. Bob says, Bob, and put in quotation marks, all things are relative. That's a statement. Bob says, all things are relative. Sandy replies, is relativism relative to? Is relativism relative to? Where's Bob going to go on that one? Because when you, now put your pencils down. If all things are relative, then relativism would become an absolute. It's self-refuting. Self-refutation in logic, which is also a branch of philosophy, is a statement that can't fulfill its own standard. I can't speak a word in English. I just spoke 7. How about this one? I always lie. Is that true? If I always lie, I told the truth, so I don't always lie. You get that? It takes a while to get those gears going. That's how you can flip the tables real fast. That's philosophy. That's logic. That's metaethics. Somebody says something, here's another one. Bob says, remember, Bob is now the folly. He's the foolish person. Bob says, there is no truth. Is that true? And Sandy goes, is that true? Bob has 2 choices, and either way, he's out to lunch. Because under Sandy, you can write A, and you can write B. A would be something like this. Bob, if it's really true that there is no truth, then it would be true that there is no truth. So we have one truth. One truth, at least at this point. You say there is no truth. I got one truth. I got the truth that there is no truth. There's probably more truth, like there's a table here and you and I are actually talking. We have 3 truths.
Some people phrase it that way, right?
You have to go to the bathroom, we have 4 truths. There's a sky outside, there's 5. You're wearing shoes, 6. Some people are what?
Some people phrase it that way. There's only one truth, that there is no truth or something.
Yeah. But let's back it up to Bob under B. And this is the one that I think you should utilize. Sandy says, or Bob, B, if it's true that there is no truth, if it really is true that there is no truth, then it would be false to say that there is no truth. Those are the 2 forks in the road. Either it's true that there is no truth, and if so, we have the truth that there is no truth. Suffer if you just hung yourself. Like Confucius, right? Confucius say, give man rope, he hangs out. Okay, B, if it really were the truth, that there is no truth, it would be false to say that there is no truth. Wrap your head around that one. All right? Okay, so that would be moral relativism, which is self-defeating, right? There is no absolute standard of right and wrong, except for the standard that there is no standard of right and wrong is highly self-refuting. Or There's only one absolute, which is relativism. That doesn't work. There is no truth except for the truth. There is no truth. Listen, your worldview is trying to get off the ground, and you're just getting derailed before you even go a foot. You know? It's sort of like, you know, the helicopter can't even get off the ground if you start off with self-refuting statements like that. You know, the skeptic. Here's another example. The skeptic. He goes, I'm skeptical of everything. Are you skeptical of skepticism? What? Oh, you believe the worldview skepticism is true, and everything else that's contrary to your skepticism is false. So you're a dogmatic skeptic. Listen, you're just like me. I'm a dogmatic Christian. You're a dogmatic skeptic. Now let's debate the facts and not hide behind, you know, self-refuting statements and throw rocks at each other. That's just silly. Why are you a skeptic? Well, I'm not sure I'm here. Well, ask me if you exist. Do I exist, Nick? Who wants to know? Because you have to be here in order to question your own existence. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's self-refuting stuff. So there's a few examples. All right, so now we're having fun again. People are laughing, not falling asleep. Okay, Christian ethics, though. Let's move on. Christian ethics is more than right conduct. It's more than just living a virtuous life. This field also includes where we get ideas of rightness and wrongness from. Where in the world does it come from? If our ideas of rightness and wrongness is grounded in Darwinian atheistic evolution, well, clearly, there is no right or wrong. You marry a goat tomorrow, who are you to condemn me? Right? I lie to the IRS all I want. Remember the Enron MBAs? Enron, remember Enron was taken down and all this stuff, and they ripped off all these people? All right, so you got a government here that's essentially, you know, taking down big business, if you will, right? And they did it for right reasons. But let's backtrack. Who educated the guys who ran Enron? Let's just say they went to Harvard, Oxford, USC. In philosophy, they're taught moral relativism. In economics, they're going, I see how I can make money. Then they become the heads, the CEOs, and everything else of Enron. And they're there to kill it financially, and they do. And there's no absolute standard right and wrong, right? And we educated them to think that way, and now they're going to prison. They're just acting upon what they were taught. And Ted Bundy said the same thing. There's no difference between me having, you know, a steak or doing whatever I will to do to you. And the screen goes off. And he says, my education has led me to believe that there's no absolute standard right and wrong. Therefore, there's no difference between me having a steak or conducting whatever, young people in that. You guys get it? That's once you act on relativism. See, philosophical ideas that are not theistic, not grounded in what we believe in, they sound good on the board, just like Marxism or communism. Nobody's going to be wealthy. No one's going to be poor. Capitalism is terrible. And so we have a pizza, right? And we're going to cut it into even slices. You get one. Steve gets one. Stan gets one. But guess what? I got a problem here. There's human greed. There's sin. Someone will always get a bigger slice. So Marxism sounds good on the table. All right. But how do you employ it? Same type of logic we have at the White House right now. I don't have a strategy yet how to take out ISIS. But I'll let you know on Wednesday, a day before 9/11. Hello? Wow. Okay. Maybe he won't tell the plan until after 9/11. Thought about that? It'd probably be a good idea. And yes, within ethics, there is justified war, unjustified war. And of course, we have problems when it comes to war because Jesus says those who live by the sword will die by the sword. But yet, when he comes back, wait a second now, during the second coming, he has a sword in his mouth. You know, first he came all peaceful, riding on a donkey, right? Pulling off miracles, doing all sorts of stuff, fulfilling prophecy, giving life to the dead, feeding the homeless, you know, hanging out with prostitutes, saving them, turning water into wine in Canaan at a wedding because they ran out. He didn't have to do any of that. He did. But the second time he comes, that same, you know, Jewish guy who we believe to be the God-man. Next time he comes, it's with vengeance. And he's not going to have a sword coming out of his mouth like it's Star Wars or something. It's an apocalyptic picture that he's coming and he is upset. And he's going to wage what on the pagan world? Well, there's going to be slaughter, essentially. Are you going to stand there and go, Jesus, you said those who live by the sword die by the sword, so you're going to die by the sword. Well, he'd just say, I'm eternal, I can't die. Right? There's no need for that discussion. What he's doing when he comes back is conducting a justified war against an unbelieving planet that hates God. And that's just. Ethics is coupled with justice, fairness, because it's grounded in rightness. So you have these, pacifist Christians saying, don't pick up guns ever. I'll buy another one on Friday. And I'll go shooting next Sunday with my son. But pacifism, just turn the other cheek, that whole language, are you going to do that if somebody comes in, storms into your house and tries to harm your family? Should the Nazis, when the Nazis showed up, at Annie Frank's, she's up in the annex, right? You know the story, I hope. If not, read her book, Annie in the Annex. Sometimes I go to when I hear of Holocaust survivors going to, to L.A. at the, what is it? The museum up there. There's two of them. Yeah. The one on Pico, I think, is the one that anyway, Holocaust, I just sit and listen to them. And it reminds me of Viktor Frankl. He wrote a very good book, Viktor Frankl. When you think about ethics and theology and where is God and the problem of pain and the problem of evil and how do we solve these things, Viktor Frankl is an interesting guy. He's like, I could hear the whistle blow on the trains as we were headed toward Auschwitz, And then you look at rock bands like Slayer having lyrics like, Auschwitz, the meaning of pain, the way that I want you to die, slow death, immense pain. It's like, really? You guys really bumped your head this morning when you fell out of bed. Just to write that kind of stuff, So, it's a little broader in this, right? But the point is, let's just say, the Nazis, they started an unjustified war. Can we agree on that? Unless you're Aryan and neo-Nazi, right? Okay, so yeah, it was wrong to gas Jews, kill gypsies and other people, including Italians and Slavs and so forth. Yeah, we can agree on that. All right. So our president, who was president during that time? Does anybody know? Was it Clinton, Bush, or Roosevelt? All right. Just checking. So Roosevelt, right, he's sitting there smoking a cigar at the White House, just going, well, it's a good thing I'm not in Europe, because in Europe, people are having barbecues right outside of Poland and in Poland. They're having barbecues, in their bouncy tents, and every night you would just smell this stench filling the European skies. There's that weird smell again. It sure ain't bacon. All right, turn up the music. Let's have a drink. As human beings are being fried to death. Right. Okay? Christians turning their back. Jews anyway.
The
Church turning their back, bishops from Rome shaking Hitler's hand. It was ugly. So finally, Roosevelt, well, I can't smell what they're smelling over there, but there's something wrong. We need to launch a war, a justified war, to stop those who started an unjustified war. And if ISIS and terrorism and anthrax and all this stuff that you've read on the news that's coming very, very, very fast, if that were to happen, if the National Guard, and by the way, most of them are out of bullets anyway. I have friends in the Marines that are saying the government's buying all the bullets before it even gets to the National Guard. The National Guard are those who defend you. And my Marine friends have friends in the National Guard, and the friends in the National Guard are saying, we are frustrated. I should put this on YouTube, right? I'll get a door, knock on my door tomorrow. The point is, the National Guard won't be able to defend us. Why? Okay? But you see, we have quite a bit of conservatives, and in Mississippi, Alabama, you have a lot of, remember the Bible Belt and Red Wings, you know what I mean? They don't care. Did I say Red Wings? I meant rednecks. Red Wings. Detroit, right? But the point is, you're going to have militias left and right, I think, unless the government does something. And one of my U.S. Army friends, he says, you know what, Nick, our Army's too strong and too big, even though it's been weakened by our great president. This is ethics and politics. So it can't bore you. It's all intertwined. And that's why I'm talking like this. So the thing is, we're too strong, Nick. I go, well, did you hear about the laptop they found in Syria? In Syria, they found the rebels in Syria walked into a room and they found a laptop that belonged to a Tunisian ISIS guy who studied chemistry in Tunisia. And as they opened the computer, it looked like there were no files until they started digging and they find hidden files on biological warfare. You know, and I'll make a little prediction here. Give it 2 weeks, you'll have, you know, Kelly on Fox, the Kelly File. She's my favorite host of them all. I think she's just awesome. And she's just going to say, we just had, 14 ISIS guys roll in with anthrax with a briefcase. That happens, millions are going to die. What do we do then? What are you going to do? Are you going to be a pacifist? Are you going to defend your neighbor? Are you going to defend your Christians? You know what they're doing in Switzerland right now? Here's another story. Christians in Switzerland. I had a Bible college student of mine up in Peru. He lives up in Santa Barbara now. He messaged me on Facebook and he says, hey, Nick, what is your view of Christians picking up arms? And I had to make sure it was him. I said there's justified war, there's unjustified war, such as us stopping the Nazis or stopping ISIS, etc. He goes, I fully agree with you. I'm like, okay, it's the right guy, But here is, okay, so I'm going to set you up right now. I'm going to set you up. Carlos, right? Do you believe that you should defend, your family? Yes. Am I your family?
Yes.
Family of God, right? Are the Christians in Iraq your family? Why don't you go help them? Ouch. So in Switzerland, there are now secret training camps where Christians are signing up. You got Christian crusaders coming back to go into the Middle East. And some of us say they got to be whacked. Do you understand their thinking, whether they're crazy or not? Do you understand their mindset? See, I just recruited you. Let's go. Now, blood's on your hands. Right? Interesting. So, I love watching the world scene and then judging it with what I have in here and seeing things because it gets to be interesting. No day is boring. Even if it's boring, you're not bored. I love to be alone because I'm never alone. You know how much I could get done if I moved to Big Bear for 1 week? Just sat in a cabin with my computer and a few books. I get a lot done. And I think I'm going to do that. One of these years, right?
Yeah, don't miss Monday.
Right. As Christians, we maintain that rightness and wrongness is not only the result of parental and social teachings, societal teachings, but also an issue of meta-ethics. Meta-ethics, meta is what lies beyond man's reach alone. Rightness, moral standards of truth and what to do is grounded in the nature of God and are therefore unchanging attributes grounded in his immutable nature. Said that already. Moreover, ethics include bioethics. Now that's one of my favorite fields. And I keep saying, whenever I teach this subject, I always stress to the women, Kayla, Lindsay, Kara, right? Everybody in here, mom and dad, that bioethics is a growing field. Bio means life, right? Biology, study of life. So if you take ethics dealing with rightness and wrong and bioethics deals with issues of life and death. Pulling the plug on grandma, abortion, human cloning, stem cell research, what lotions to use, and so forth. Very interesting field. And Karen, when she was working as a nurse, the bioethicists and the people who run the hospital, they would meet upstairs and And
It's called the ethics committee, actually.
yeah. And what would Karen say to her friends? The gods are meeting upstairs because they decide who's going to die and live at that hospital. Yeah, and it has to do with your insurance. So good luck with Obamacare. It's not working in Sweden.
They're death penalties, but they say they don't.
It's called the ethics committee. They review, they nominate patients for this committee.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot to do with.
Well, they say there's not such thing, but there
Is
is.
the money,
So I'm going to get it.
the money we're spending on this patient worth it, basically?
Right.
If I'm honest. Really,
And so the bioethicist, and that's one of the MAs I'm going to pursue in the spring, is MA in bioethics, because I just love that field. And most people don't care about that. But I care. And you know what? It's not how many people you teach. It's the few that run with it. If you can change their mind or they actually get it and run with it, you never know what's going to happen, out there. But,
Can I just say, because I think maybe people are assuming I'm talking about old people, but mine are newborns.
yeah.
My patients are newborns.
You worked at the preemie department, right? Yeah. And you know what? Preemie was born. I have to finish this. So now you know I listen. Mother has a premature baby. Put her in the crib, right? And mom says, okay, so when I can see my baby, we're just going to clean out the baby, cut the umbilical cord, do all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. They'll take that baby, put it, in the little cart on the wheels, put a blanket over him, push it into a dark room, shut the door. If that baby's breathing 2 hours later, it gets attention. If it dies, it dies. It has to fight. Now, what does the Hippocratic Oath say?
First one, no harm.
Do no harm, right? And life preserving ought to be the goal of the doctor. And we'll get into that when we get into medical ethics, the Hippocratic Oath, which is why Dr. Jack the Dripper, right? Jack the Dripper, remember Kevorkian, who would kill people left and right? He thought it was a good idea for a doctor to actually end life. And I had a family member, not my blood, my wife's aunt. They pulled the plug on her last week. And I'm at the hospital, literally for 6 minutes, because I have a kid at home. I have to take care of my son while they're all over there at the hospital. This woman lived such a rough life that obviously it's going to catch up with you. Now here's the thing. All of her organs had shut down. All of them. And all of them, so they say, started to leak in her body.
Yes.
Mixed with urine, feces in her blood. So it's like, you got 2 days to live. That's all they gave her. She goes into a coma. Priest comes over to pray. They call me, can you come over and pray? I'm like, we can't right now. I can't. I'm not going to take my son to the hospital, this late. So I can be there in the morning. If not, when is the chapel there? Chaplain guy. You always got a chapel. He'll be in sometime in the morning. I hung up the phone and I kind of felt bad. But it's the world doesn't stop turning. You still have to handle what's really, really in front of you. So I'm home alone. My son's sleeping. My wife's over there. Comes home 4:30 in the morning, 7:30 the next day. Just tore up, And it's heartbreaking. But I guess sisters and the daughter and the husband decided that, you know what, it's time to pull the plug. And here's the verbiage that you hear. Put them out of their own misery. First of all, how do you know she's miserable? She's in coma. 2, did she leave a will? Pull the plug. If my wife went to the hospital, and she went into a coma, I would do everything that I could to keep her on that respirator. That's just me. I'm so pro-life I can't see straight, and I'm consistent. But you're pro-death when it comes to capital punishment. Well, that's let the punishment fit the crime. That's justice. Completely different. But my wife came home and she says, "They're gonna pull the plug." I says, "All right." So they decided to kill her. And the kids are sitting there just going, "Wow, what'd you just say?" And some of them kind of got it, like, "Oh yeah, I'm just calling it for what it is." Next morning they pulled the plug. My wife came home with everybody. She says, "Yeah, she passed at 10:30." I go, "So they killed her at 10:30." I guess I'm not the nicest guy to have around, but I want to make them think because the kids are there. When I say kids, they're not 4.5 years old. You know what I mean? 18, 22, and we got 8. So These are serious issues. And when Obamacare, if that thing really does launch and they clean up this mess and everything else, social medicine typically doesn't work in your favor. It doesn't. And let me tell you this. When I came over here, Americans would be like, so you're from Sweden, yeah. Do you guys have polar bears and penguins crossing the street? I go, yeah, 24/7. We don't have We don't have cars. We got, Shetland ponies pulling a wagon, and Santa lives in my hometown. That's when they finally figured out. It's like, where did you guys go to school? On top of that, I'm an agnostic. I see churches on every corner. I go, these people are really stupid. First Baptist, second, last Baptist. You got to be first, last, whatever. Crosses everywhere. I'm like, wow, really gullible. It's like the biggest crush I've ever seen. I like what Greg Laurie says there. When he was on Larry King goes, isn't Christianity a crutch? And Greg Laurie goes, Jesus is a hospital. He's more than a crutch. And Larry just goes, I got to remember that one. That's a good one. Just killed it right there. And I love that. But, all right. Too much fun. Let's move on. I forgot what I was going to say. I know that, but what topic were we on?
Social medicine.
Social medicine.
In Sweden.
Yeah. Let's tie that together to where we are going right now, because all of us are going to get older. All right? In Sweden, we have socialized medicine, and even to this day, people will say, you guys have the best medicine over there. Well, they tax the living business out of you to keep social medicine going. But when I left Sweden, I was 16 years old, left by myself, 20 bucks to my name, bye-bye. I'd seen 3 homeless people in my life, and those people wanted to be homeless. They were the guys laying at a park bench like Central Park in New York, that's just laying there drinking, and they want to be homeless. Because if you want help in Sweden, here's what they do. You go see a counselor at the welfare office, or equivalent of that, and you just go, look, I'm down on luck, can you help me? Sure. All right, here's your apartment, here's your EBT card, and what do you want to do? We have to put you into like the equivalent to ROP. You know what I mean by that? They're adult school, right? You did everything wrong, I have to go back there. I study ROP when you're 59 years old. Well, at least do it. Do something. It's never too late. All right, so they give you a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. They're going to train you to be a truck driver. I'm talking driving the big rigs on the road, right? Which is decent money if you're single, especially in Europe. And once you get the license, I mean, it's not DMV here, you get in 5 minutes. I read the DMV book while in line and took the test. It's the same on motorcycle license. It's just ridiculous. And it's scary you can get it that fast because you don't know what time it is. How's this for a law? You should drive a car for 20 years before you get a motorcycle. Because then you at least learn people's mistakes. Why am I saying that? Because now I'm a father. And I have daughters who want choppers. Okay. I'm going to have to get life insurance on all of them, I guess. Yeah, I have 5 kids, more than a Mormon family. One time I said that to a client, she goes, we're Mormon. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Then she goes, do you want something to drink? I said, I'll take a water. She comes back out with a Coke. I go, you drinking Coke? She goes, sometimes I cheat. My husband's not home. I'm drinking Coca-Cola because they can't have caffeine. But they can own Coke, Alpha Beta selling alcohol. But that's business. That's not religion. All right. Okay. But anyway, the socialized medicine is now backfiring. Swedes have to pay into socialized medicine because you can't say, I don't want to pay for that anymore. On top of that, they're getting the equivalent of Blue Cross for $400 a month because they want the best care. That's double pay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because it's not working. So when I left, I took all that was good in Sweden with me because my mom calls me and says, Malmo's now like little Chicago. I go, what do you mean? We have so much drugs here since they built the bridge that turns into a tunnel between Copenhagen, Denmark, and Sweden. There's all sorts of drugs. My boys from high school built part of that bridge, and they're like, this place is crazy. You know what I mean? I lived in the Swedish part that looks like Harlem. We weren't all white kids there, so to speak. Lots of Muslims. If I walked in there today, I would be met by 10 little young Hamas wannabes with baseball bats and knives. And they would cut me into sushi. That's what they've done to my town. And you guys got that coming here, because the same is in London, Spain, Italy, and you know what? So behind the times here, we think we're so advanced. Your country's 200 years old. 200 years old. I've lived in houses that, you know, are 1,200 years old. So, we're like a one-hit wonder, like Quiet Riot. Come and feel the noise. Straight up, straight down. But the interesting thing is, look at the countries. So if Hillary Clinton and you know, and Obama and Michelle could just move over, live in one of those countries, and see what it's doing, it doesn't work. But it's because they want to get wealthy. They get the bigger slice of the Marxist pizza. The hoi polloi, which means in Greek, the masses, will always remain donkeys. Thomas Jefferson said the masses are donkeys. King James Version. All right. Ethics include bioethics. You understand that? Did I get you going now? Bioethics is interesting stuff, right? Yes. Let's go a few more minutes, and we're going to cross into philosophy. I know we're going over time a little bit because we have some technical difficulties. Stay, go, whatever. I'm going to continue to go. This is Scott Ray. This is the second book that I'm recommending for the MA students, those that are taking this class for a master's level versus bachelor's. Should be unpopular, but it looked like maybe Wendy took it out. I don't know. Scott Ray's the second book, and I'll figure something out. We have more time to read that and maybe not have the same type of uploads on Christian ethics. But anyway, he teaches ethics at Talbot School of Theology, which is over at Biola. He says here, quote, this is to get your minds going, why this is important. Imagine that you are a representative in your state legislature. We all understand what that means, right? And you're charged with the task of formulating wise and responsible laws that will be enacted across the state. You decided to run for elected office. You intend to represent Christ in your political office, a part of which is to introduce bills into the legislature that you think reflect Christian morality, and to vote on bills in a way that is consistent with your convictions. What kind of laws would you favor? To what degree should you support legislating Christian morality? I believe in separation in church and state. What does that mean? What would you do with your Christian morality in a pluralistic society or secular society? You're going to shove your values down my throat? Heard that one, right? To what degree is it right that you bring your Christian views into the political arena? These questions are at the heart of the debate over legislating morality, especially in a culture that assumes the separation of church and state and claims pluralism as one of its foundational elements. Yes, ethics is important. I'm going to give you a quick one-liner. This is the quick credit card answer, right? The credit card answer. When people go, I don't think that the government should legislate morality. I don't think the government should legislate morality. Maybe you heard that. If not, you're not talking about your pro-life views very much. But if you do, you're going to hear it within the abortion debate. For sure, the government should not legislate morality. All right? Let me ask you this. What is a law if it's not a legislature of morality? Every single law is a legislature of morality. This is right, this is wrong. If you do wrong, you're going to jail, or there'll be a fine. Every single law is a legislature of morality. Do you guys follow me?
Yeah.
So it sounds good. It's like a political mantra. My body, my choice, my body, my choice, my body, my choice, my body, my choice. What do you hinder now? It's not your body. What if you're carrying a male? Since when did you have male organs? Is that a fair question? It's an extension of my body. Really? So you're half male now? Just silly that sounds. So, what was I going to say? On this topic now of legislating morality, before we get into deontological, teleological ethics, moral relativism, and some of these other things, I want to stop here because I didn't plan on sharing this, but I've shared this. Some of you might remember this probably from 2 years ago when we started our apologetics here. And that is, there was a study at Harvard University, and I just heard it. It was actually Dr. Winston Frost. He was the dean of the School of Law at Simon Greenleaf, who gave a lecture, and I had it in my notes, and those notes, it look like Dead Sea Scrolls papyri now. I don't know where they're at, and I can't get a hold of him, and Trinity Law School purchased the school. Everybody went to Biola, and I can't get a hold of Winston. So the facts that are in my head are probably not all that accurate, so I'm going to be careful with the percentage, okay? So don't quote me on this. Roughly, though, Harvard University came out with a study about how people think about morality. I didn't say that was the name of the paper, but that was what the general idea was. And their research showed that when people think about morality, they stop at certain levels. I found this very interesting. So, for example, when you're growing up, right? Let's be pagans for a little bit. You got reward and punishment, right? But we still believe that there's moral conscience, right? I mean, if my son, I don't know how old he was, I'm like, did you take a cookie? No. It's true, he took 5. So did he lie? No, he didn't. But he did, right? But the point is, I didn't have to teach him to lie. In sin, my mother conceived me. It's actually true. I don't have to teach kids to do bad things. But the point is, the level 1 of moral reasoning is reward and punishment, right? I'm not going to do that because I'll get in trouble. Have you noticed that most gangbangers have that mentality, the people in prison? Right? It's only wrong because the cops might get me, but I'm going to do it anyway. They haven't really graduated morally at all. They're nuts. There's a very sophomoric, early type of development that really you should be snapping out of. Here I am. Probably, depending on your growth, probably right around 11 or 14 or 15, you should be thinking like maybe it's not just about reward and punishment. It's duty-centered. I'm not going to lie to my mom about stealing the money so I can go buy this or that, you know what I mean? Because it's just wrong to me to do that to my mother because I love her. There's all these other things. It's not reward and punishment. Do you see what I'm saying? So the second level starts actually to think about, well, you know what? I'm going to do it because it is right. I have no idea. They tell me there was no right and wrong at Cypress College, UCLA, and Harvard, and even Oxford Divinity School. I mean, God forbid. But something in here says, you know what? Something rotten in Denmark. I'm going to do what my gut tells me to do. It's like Geisler says. We have a baloney meter. A baloney meter. Someone says something funky and it just goes, You're just alarmed, right? For example, if moral relativism is true, the idea that there's no absolute standard right and wrong, here's a question. So, do you believe that torturing a 2-year-old for mere fun is morally neutral and relative? They would have to say, yeah. It's just not socially advantageous per Darwinism. What? Is that, are you on drugs? Well, after church, what do you guys do? We don't go to the Afterglow. We go downtown LA and cannibalize on the homeless because it's fun. There's no absolute standard right and wrong. And by the way, the end justifies the means. So we killed 5 homeless guys and fed 5,000 children, at some camp in Africa. The end justifies the means, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. The end does not justify the means. That's teleological ethics. It's not duty-centered ethics, which is deontological ethics. All right, I am totally under the weather. So what was I just saying before I got to deontology? The Harvard study, the level 1. Hey, at least I did it. You tried to teach this. We barely talk. Fell asleep at 2 o'clock, woke up at 5:30. What do I do now? And that took the whole day off, and I still couldn't sleep. But, kids, someone push the AC there, the AC button. Open that door. Yeah, I mean, make it 56 or at least 60. This is hotter outside than in here. The green light has to come on. All right, anyway. So what is sort of what they call the graduating level of morality? Like, now you're going to be like, oh, see, I know the top level. That's where you start really thinking about what is a law and why is it there? And That takes you to the point where this is what reminded me of sharing this with you. You know, you pro-lifers are trying to legislate morality. That's number one. And Chris, I just walked in, so when you share your pro-life, I've seen your little dreams and what you want to do to society and all this stuff. So they're going to go, you pro-lifers trying to shove your morality down my throat. And so then they're quick to say, you know what, gay marriage and everything else, they'll say, look, bottom line is, the government should not legislate morality. That's when Krista goes, you know what? Every single law is a legislation of morality. It says, this is wrong because. So the third level of moral reasoning is where you go, if that is so, where do these values come from? Now, you can still be a relativist. It's just a little inconsistent. But I'll give you one. One thing that Bill Clinton did that was right was raise the speed limit. I think he should have left that at 85. But it was 55 when Kayla was like 5 years old. Now it's 65. Because he was probably impatient riding in a limo from LAX at 55. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculously slow. So he raised it to 65. Is there a moral principle behind speed limits? Don't break the speed limit because you might run over people and kill them, and killing is wrong. You get it? Now, the numbers, the speed limit is relative because it can go up and down, right? Obama might make it 18 miles an hour because that's how fast he moves. But let's just say he raised it to 70 miles an hour. Now, ISIS can drive faster into Texas. I'm just kidding. The point, though, is you can go up and down on the speed limit, true? But the moral principle behind it stays the same. Okay, so here's another scenario. Corey falls off the table and just like passes out, right? I'll be the first one to grab him in my truck, and I'll have him either at Hoag or in Fountain Valley Hospital before you guys even get up to Warner. Any one of you. I would just go to the hospital as quick as I can, call 911, and I call the cops too and say, I'm in an excursion diesel, and I'm doing 90 on Warner. Corey's not breathing. He's one of my students. Come get in front of me or behind me or something and just escort me to the hospital. I ain't pulling over for the ambulance. He's not breathing. Karen's in the back, you know, doing CPR and everything else, and nothing's happening. So here's the thing. Here's a question. The moral dilemma. It says to go 45 on Warner. Okay? I'm doing 80, trying not to run over people. Okay? Am I right or wrong?
The intention of the law was to keep people safe in the first place, or trying to keep them safe.
Say that again so everybody hears it?
The entire intention...
No, stand up. I'm kidding.
Go
on.
I love being so nervous.
Yes.
The intention of the law was to keep people safe in the first place.
Right.
What you're doing is keeping someone safe, so you are still abiding by the moral of the law, even though you're not abiding by the letter of the law. Well
said. Well said. So we can call that...
The speed limit.
She studied on me for 4 years before, so that's why she knows. Oh no, we have to have a little fun,
You're potentially saving lives, theoretically.
The point is, I'm sticking to life preserving.
If Corey is in your car.
Yep.
You're actually saving a particular life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique circumstance.
Yeah.
So you're going from the general to
and the point is, when it says 45 miles an hour, the purpose of 45 miles an hour in Warner is for life preserving purposes. Don't drive too fast. And don't drink and drive. You hit someone, you got to kill someone that's innocent. Chances are you're not going to run over Hitler. There's going to be some homeless guy or something that's really down and out, and you took him out. But, so, in a sense, the life principle, the moral absolute behind 45 miles an hour is don't kill people, is for life preserving. I'm violating the speed limit for life preserving purposes. I want to save his life. And if I don't go faster, he'll probably die. And if I make it to the hospital without killing 18 people, say I just make it there, and they says, 1 minute later, Corey would be dead and Krista would lose her husband. I'm going to go right on. And I wouldn't get a speeding ticket. I wouldn't. Who's exempt from keeping those laws? Police and ambulance. I was sort of like a personal ambulance for a while. Now, what I just shared with you about this Harvard study about ethics is what we're talking about at this point is most people don't even go there. A, they don't care. B, they'll never think about it. C, when you do share it, they're going to go, huh, that's cool. Should we go to Starbucks right now and take a selfie? Selfie with a Bible verse. Now we're really productive. So, anyway, this is interesting stuff. All right, I'm going to end on, we already talked about moral relativism. I'm going to give you two definitions, then we're going to move to philosophy really, really, really fast. Everything's delayed. I apologize, but it's all right. Moral relativism. There are no absolute standards of right and wrong, right? There's no absolute standard of right and wrong, the relativist claims. Morality are reduced to social mores. They differ from society to society. Who are you to judge another culture? They have their ethics. Try that to Jim Jones or apartheid in Africa or the Nazis. That's exactly what the Nazis says. Who are you guys? Remember the Justify War Unjustified? At the Nuremberg trial, the Nazis are sitting there going, who are you? Americans, British, Italians coming in here into our country and tell us what's right and wrong? It's Mein Kampf, Deutsches Demokrat, Sieg Heil. That's what we believe in. Who are you? Relativists. What was the answer to the Nazis at the Nuremberg trial? We appeal to a higher law. It's called natural law. That's above your little law. You try to do that in today's law schools in America. That's how things have changed. Moral objectivism or absolutism. There exists a moral law that is absolute and unchanging. This moral objectivism is true regardless of culture, geography, and the knower. All right? Now, C.S. Lewis, remember he was a historian at Oxford. Screwtape Letters, God of the Dock, he's a guy you should be reading. And another guy you guys should be reading is Francis Schaeffer. The Christian view of the West, just healthy reading. I disagree with his apologetics, because he would say what we're doing here is probably not the way to go, but I think it is. Having said that, C.S. Lewis, he sought to defend moral objectivism. And he studied various cultures historically all over the world, or for most parts of the world, or at least some parts of the world. All right? Here's what he concluded. That the core part of morality, typically, unless you're insane, we all agree upon. There are absolutes in all cultures. I made two distinctions. There's a factual difference. Keep that in mind. If you go to some remote part of the world or look at whatever culture you can put your hands upon, even, crazies that live in the Amazon between Brazil and Peru, little dwarfs, demons running around, witchcraft like you wouldn't believe. I told the pastor, get me in there on a boat. He goes, we won't leave. I go, can we get guns and go in? He goes, no, there's no guns in Peru. I go, can we get bow and arrow? I really want to see these little dwarfs. Learn about them in Rome. Little demonic dwarfs running around the forest. Just evil. Because they're into witchcraft and, nastiness. But anyway, even in that culture, the most depraved culture or cultures, you will never find it praiseworthy to run away in battle and leave your family behind. That's one absolute that we can agree upon. You know what I mean? You're not going to find a culture where lying is like applauded. Yeah, it's a good thing. Always lie. Lie to me too, son. It's a good thing to lie. You're not going to find a culture, like I started off with this lecture, where the 10 Commandments are completely reversed. Always commit adultery, always steal. I have met many guys before me, etc., going down the list. Because that's crazy. It's sort of like looking at today's world and all the problems that we have in the world, right? It's not really a war of just terrorism and counterterrorism and justice and morality. No, you know what? What's before our eyes right now is a war between sane and the insane. Because ISIS, they have no morality. They have no respect for human life, human dignity, or the imago Dei, being created in the image of God. They're cutting 4-year-olds in half right before their mother's eyes. They're killing their own Muslims. Ugly place. Here we're sitting in Sunset Beach enjoying this. But the point is, learn and make a difference out there. Voice your opinion, for crying out loud. We'll end on that point. Yeah. Okay, can you pause that? Let's do philosophy next. If you need to go, go. If you want to stick around, stick around. 2 out of 3 done. We can do one more, right? 15 minutes. See you, Steve.
You're gonna do 1 for 2 minutes?
Yeah, sometimes we go later. And sometimes we start late because people are late. Now, feel bad, just stop. I mean, to start too soon.
There you go. My
Did-
4th day here a week is not late. We're going late, can I run you off?
There you go.
Bob says all things are relative. Sandy says what?
Hold on. Bob says all things are relative. Sandy says, is relativism relative also?
Late's not gonna run me off. Tuesdays, Fridays,
This one is not yours.
Right. No, I got mine here.
And then you did another one. Did something else. What was the other one? There is no truth. Was that one?
He said, there is no truth.
Yeah, you said Bob says,
You know that one there.
Wait.
Bob says,
yeah,
there is no truth. Sandy says it's true that there is no truth.
there is no truth. Okay.
Because then we have one truth, that truth. Hey, Corey, did you just pause that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to hit?
Yeah, just tell me when.
Okay. I'll help you out with that later. All right. Just hit that thing, and I'll see you later, Corey.
Memory card's
Oh, is it? All right, that's fine. I will record it from my computer instead.
I don't know how much you got in the last